Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday. I'm going to give folks a couple of minutes to kind of come in the stream here, and we're going to also push it out to our Facebook page as well, just because it's kind of a big weekend. There's a lot of stuff going on outside today. We got the air show in town at the Davenport Airport. We got a lot of other stuff going on, so just wanted to get the info out that we are expecting some active weather a little bit later this afternoon and this evening. I don't think this is going to be a huge deal by any means, but just want folks to be ready for what's coming our way a little bit later. My fingers and toes and everything else at this point are absolutely crossed that we're going to get some rain out of this. I think this is the most promising opportunity for rain that I have seen in weeks in terms of not only the amount but the coverage on this. So that's something that we're looking forward to. So we're going to give folks a moment to kind of come into the live stream here, and then we'll get things underway. And we'll talk about some storms and some rain. There's a couple of things that are going to make today's storms different compared to what we would typically see this time of year as well. So we'll talk more about that. So it looks like we're on the Facebook feed right now. I'm going to give folks just a minute or two here to come on into the stream, and then we'll go ahead and we'll get started. Hopefully you guys are having a good start to your weekend so far. It's kind of nice outside for right now, nice and cool. You got some sun, you got temperatures in the 50s and 60s. I think you're going to feel a little humidity as we go into this afternoon. That's going to be different. We've been so dry with this dry heat. We really haven't had that robust summer-like humidity yet that we typically see in the Quad Cities. So we've been lucky in that part, in that sense. But unfortunately, that's what happens when you're dealing with this drought situation. But I know so many of you are dying for some rain. My yard is so crunchy right now. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's been nice to not have to mow the last couple of weeks, but man, it is just in bad shape. And I look at some of the fields too, cornfields in particular, and a lot of the corn, the leaves are starting to kind of curl in, which is kind of their self-defense mechanism for drought conditions. So gosh, I really hope we get some rain, and it looks like that's going to be the case here today. So we're at 8 o'clock. Let's go ahead and we'll get things started. Thanks for joining me this morning. Again, it's not a huge deal or huge risk, but I wanted to hop onto the live chat this morning because, again, it's a big weekend for a lot of outdoor stuff. There's a lot of outdoor things going on. You got the Henry County Fair going on. We've got the Quad City Air Show going on in Davenport and a lot of other things. So just want to show you what we've got going on coming in for today. So let's start with the here and now. What a nice morning it's been. Nice and cool. We've got temperatures in the 50s, some 60s going on out there as well. What we're going to be watching, though, is what's happening to the west of us. So this is the setup we've got going for today. We've actually got a fairly impressive and potent area of low pressure given the time of year that is sitting and spinning over the Dakotas. It's going to be heading into Wisconsin a little bit later this afternoon into this evening. But you look at the radar, and yeah, really impressive line of showers and thunderstorms. It's covering much of Iowa this morning, especially getting into central Iowa. So let's zoom in a little bit closer here. Nothing severe right now, by the way, but a really impressive line. Now, the plan for this line that we have going on right now is that it's not really going to make it here to the Quad Cities in its current form. It likely will fall apart, begin to detensify or get a little less intense, though we are going to see a little bit of cloud cover from this as we go into the late morning and early afternoon. But this is not going to be the main event. What's going to happen is this line of storms will fall apart. It will leave a boundary for new storms to develop, likely in north central Iowa as we get into the late afternoon, and then those are going to be sweeping down from the north and northeast as we head into this evening. Why those storms likely aren't going to make it here? Well, they're going to run out of instability storm energy, but they're also going to run into slightly drier air. We still have these dew points that are sitting in the 50s. It has been such a struggle to see anything well into the 60s, into the 70s so far this year because we're in a drought. We're actually now in a severe drought, so it's hard to get those dew point and those moisture levels up when the ground is so dry. So they're going to run into this drier air, likely fall apart a little bit. Where you do see those higher dew points, that moisture, is in western Iowa. You've got 70s there. Now, we may come close to that later this afternoon as that air mass works its way eastward, and that's what's going to kind of help drive the threat for some strong to severe storms in addition to the storm energy as we get into the afternoon. So here's the red zones for today. Really, it's the entire Quad Cities that's in the red zone. This has shifted east over the last couple of days. We first started talking about this on Tuesday. That's when I first showed you this threat. And now that level 2 has moved over east, and it now covers the entire Quad Cities all the way east to Bureau County. So all of us are in the threat track 2 out of 5. It's not a high risk today, but again, with everything going on outside, it's worth mentioning so that you guys know exactly when you're expecting these storms to arrive. So let's break down the threats, threat by threat here, starting with the tornado zone today. It's on an isolated basis. I'm not really too worried about the tornadic threat. There are some ingredients that are coming together, but today's threat is much different compared to something that we would typically see this time of year. And the drought has a really big play and influence in that. But the higher threat is just west of Muscatine, Mount Pleasant, and Burlington. I agree with that because I think that's where the storm energy is higher. That's also where the wind shear is going to be a little bit better. You've got that twisting and turning with height. And that's also where storms are likely going to be the most intense because the farther west you go, that's closer to the storm initiation where they're going to start. And that's where they're going to have the most severity, if you will. I think they weaken a little bit as they head east. But let's talk about why I think today's tornado threat is a little bit different compared to what we would typically see for this time of year. So there's a couple of things coming into play. One of them definitely has to do with the drought. So because the ground is so dry and we're lacking that really good moisture that we would typically see this time of year, we're going to have what are called elevated or high bases to these thunderstorms. That is, the bottom of the thunderstorm cloud is going to be much higher off the ground than when it would typically be for this time of year. In June, we typically have a base of a thunderstorm cloud that's much closer to the ground, because we have higher moisture levels. We don't have that because of our drought. So because of this, our tornado threat today is kind of leaning more towards a landspout tornado type threat day. That is where you've got more rotation and more spin up going on closer to the ground than you do actually in the cloud, because the distance of those two things is much higher or much greater than it usually is this time of year. It's harder to get those strong, damaging tornadoes. So that's kind of some good news, and I want to show you the difference between that. So there you see what we have going on today. The base of that storm cloud much higher than it typically is. We're talking about 4,000 to 6,000 feet. Usually in June, this time of year, the base of that storm cloud is only 1,000 feet off the ground. And that means that rotation that's within the cloud, of course, is closer to the ground, and it's easier for that tornado to make that connection. But we don't have that today. That difference or that distance is much greater. So it's much harder for those two things, the rotation on the top of the cloud and in the cloud, to make that connection to the ground. So that's why we have that difference today, and that's why I'm not too concerned with the threat for tornadoes. Could we see one or two? Absolutely, but again, I'm not concerned with this being a big high-end event. Let's switch gears and talk about what's going to happen with the hail threat. Where you're seeing that diamond pattern, which is just west of Mount Pleasant and Muscatine into Iowa City, Cedar Rapids, that's where the big hailers are expected to be today. Again, it's closer to where the storms are going to take off and have their greatest severity, if you will, and then that gets a little bit lower as we go further to the east. I still think our main threat today is going to be some damaging wind gusts, potentially 60, 70 miles an hour. I'm thinking more about 60, and this is typically going to be more of a downburst wind that's going to be coming with these. So that's going to be my main concern today, some strong wind gusts, and if you're caught outside in that, especially at a concert venue or anything like that, that could be a dangerous situation. So it is something you want to remain aware of as we go through the evening. So here's your timing, summing this all up into one graphic, what this is going to look like as we head in towards your Saturday here. It's 5 this evening until 11 o'clock late tonight, and this again is for severe storms on a scattered basis. We're talking damaging wind, the biggest threat, followed by some hail, and of course an isolated tornado or two. Let's take it hour by hour with Future Track and show you how this is likely going to play out. So we're quiet this morning. We're going to keep it quiet as we go through the noon hour. Then we get that storm energy to build up. And you see that complex of showers and storms just sneaking into the northwest of us there. Just dies off and falls apart. But what it does is it sends that new boundary in here, and that boundary is what the new storms are going to be firing on as we head in towards the late afternoon, early evening. So here we are at 6 o'clock, still fairly quiet, but after that, that's when the storms really get going to our north and west, and then they will sweep down as we head throughout the evening. You're noticing that, there's a little bit of a gap in this coverage as it moves into the Quad Cities. That is certainly possible. Indications are that this may not be a solid line that's going to be coming through. There may be one or two gaps in this, but the hope is that 75% or greater of you, or more of you, are going to see this activity that's actually going to contain some really healthy downpours within this. We're talking the potential for 1/4 of an inch to 3/4 of an inch of rain, potentially 1 inch plus in some isolated spots. But there you see, really the bulk of this activity is coming in after dark. So I think we're going to be able to get most of our outdoor events and plans off without too many problems as we get through the afternoon. It's later this evening when things really begin to kind of uptick a little bit in terms of intensity. So we'll work that out. There are some indications too. You're noticing some new development here on the back side of this line. We may have a situation setting up once we get to midnight and beyond, where we get what's called a little training of thunderstorms, where we get some storms that move over the same areas repeatedly. Right now, there's not a lot of agreement on where that's going to set up. You can see our model, our in-house model, has that set up south of Interstate 80 as we go through midnight. We'll keep an eye on that. I'm not concerned about flash flooding. I mean, the ground is just so dry. It's starving for moisture. It's just going to take all of this and just suck it in really, really quickly. But we'll keep an eye on the radar nonetheless. Tomorrow morning, 1 or 2 showers and storms left over. We could see another isolated batch as we go into the afternoon, but overall a much quieter day and no severe weather is expected for tomorrow. There's your rainfall potential, and there you see what I mean about it splitting up into 2 areas. I would really love to see this hold together and be a solid line, but again, not guaranteeing that's what's going to happen. I think there could be a little bit of a split there where you get some lighter amounts, but the potential is there for some of our hometowns, especially those that missed out on the isolated storm coverage last week, to at least get some meaningful rainfall as we go into the evening here tonight. So we'll hope that continues to be the case. I'm certainly hopeful. Again, I think this is the best shot at some rain that we have had in a long, long time. It is well overdue. If you haven't been updated on what's going on with the drought here, I want to show this really quickly too, because a good chunk of us now are in severe drought, especially if you're long and south of Interstate 80. You're in the severe drought. That is a level 3 drought there. You can see the different levels, exceptional being the worst, and 61% of our area now in moderate drought. It's the worst time of year, honestly, you can be in a drought, because this is not only the time of year when the evaporation is the highest because the sun is the strongest, but this is the time of year where we typically pick up the most amount of rainfall in June and July. So the fact that we're missing out on that, definitely not good. It's a critical time of year. Of course, we've talked about farmers. It's a critical time of year for them. They typically like to see an inch of rain per week this time of year, and they're just not getting it. So the hope is we'll get the rain tonight. I see a little bit more of an active pattern coming into next week, with a couple more chances for showers and storms. So that'll be a nice change too. And hopefully we won't get back into that big dry pattern that we've just been stuck in forever and ever, it seems, over and over again. So if you have any additional questions, I'm going to be sticking around until noon today. Meteorologist Andrew Stutzke will be in this evening to cover those storms should anything get out of hand. Again, I'm not expecting a huge outbreak of severe weather by any stretch of the imagination, but there could be a couple of storms that try and get a little feisty as we head into the evening here. But if you have any additional questions, I'm going to stay on the text line here until noon. So you can text that number. Anything I didn't answer here in the chat this morning, I will go ahead and get back to you via text message, and I'll be here until noon monitoring that specific chat, which is kind of a nice feature. I love that we're able to do that for you guys. I'm going to go through, see if we have any additional questions. I'm going to put the summary graphic back up so you guys can see what's going on. Again, it's been so long since I've had to talk about storms. It's kind of nice that I have something to talk about other than heat and sunshine. If I've ever wondered what working in Phoenix would be like as a meteorologist, we've had a good taste of it here the last several weeks. And I tell you what, I could not do it. That is just too boring for me. My goodness. All right, I'm going to start with my page first real quickly. Linnell, my good friend, checking in from Elizabeth there. Joe Davis County wondering how much rain you can expect. I think locally more than an inch. Looks like a good bet there. I don't think the air quality is going to have too much of an impact on severe weather today. It's more of a drought feedback that's going to have the issue with the chances for severe weather today. If we had a lot more moisture, I think our chances for some more widespread severe weather would be better, but the moisture, just continues to be lacking around here. Sam's wondering if Henderson County is going to get a lot of rain. I think you get a good drink there in Henderson County. No doubt about that. Good morning, Wanda. Yeah, I've been praying for rain for the last 3-4 weeks. It's been terrible. Absolutely terrible. Good morning, Marianne. Good to see you this morning. I'm going to switch over to the main page, see if we have anything there that I can answer really quickly, and then I'm going to get ready for GMQC coming up at 9. Yeah, this morning just goes so quickly. Gresk says, used to live in the Quad Cities. Job responsibilities have you in Rockford now. Dry up here as well. There's rain chances up north in our area as well. Yeah, Rockford, my old stomping grounds. I saw they just got a new meteorologist at my old station at 23, so that's exciting. That is very exciting. All right, and with that, you guys are quiet. I must have answered all your questions. But again, if you have another question I didn't answer, I'm going to leave the text message option open until noon. I'll be monitoring that. Feel free. Just text 309-304-0888 with your question. I'll get it right here on my phone and on my computer, and I'll give you a response. So to reiterate again what we're expecting for today, it's mainly a damaging wind threat. This is coming in between 5 this evening and 11 o'clock tonight. It's for all areas of the Quad Cities. Let's go through Future Track one more time here so you can see the timing when we're expecting this to come in. There's my clicker. Gosh, I've been looking for that for the last 20 minutes. It's right in front of me. It's early. So there you see, early afternoon's quiet, that complex of showers and storms to the west kind of dying out, and then we energize the atmosphere with the heating, the sun, getting into the mid-90s today, by the way. Make sure you're staying hydrated. And there you see the storms coming in after 8, 9 o'clock. The timing's been fairly consistent on this. I was watching James's forecast last night and the night before. Very consistent on the timing. So I like the fact that at least has been consistent, and so is the coverage too, that the majority of that will be plowing through here through the midnight hour, and then things are going to quiet down, just an isolated shower storm as we go into your Sunday. You guys enjoy the rest of your day. I'll catch you here coming up on GMQC in about 45 minutes with Jenna Webster, and we'll call it a day, and of course we'll keep an eye on the radar here for the afternoon. That's what we do here. We track storms. So as those storms come in, if we need to break in on air online, we will certainly do that. Make sure you've got the News 8 app or Storm Track 8 app ready to go on your phone. They'll alert you should we get a watch or a warning. And of course, we'll keep an eye on things right here at News 8. Take care.